Hello everyone, it's Miss Hinde-Taylor here reading chapter 16 of Half a King by Yarvi, and the title of this chapter is Enemies and Allies. To no one's surprise, Yarvi found himself much better suited to the stores than the oars. At first he could hardly crawl into his shadowy, creaking new domain below decks for the confusion of barrels and boxes, of overspilling chests, of swinging bags and hooked to the ceiling. But within a day or two he had everything as organised as Mother Gundring's shelves had been, in spite of the pale new planks of the repair steadily oozing salt water. It was not a comforting task, bucketing out the brackish puddle that built up every morning, but a great deal better than being back on the benches. Yarvi found a length of bent iron to bash at any nail that gave a hint of loosening, and tried not to imagine that just beyond the straining tissue of rough-sawn wood Mother Sea's full crushing weight was bearing in. The south wind limped eastwards, and wounded and unmanned though she was, within a few days reached the great market at Roystock, 100 shops pressed onto a boggy island near the mouth of the Divine River. Small, swift ships were caught at the tangle of wharves like flies in a spider's web, and their lean and sunburned crews were caught too. Men who had rowed hard weeks upstream and carried their ships for even harder ones at the tall hauls were swindled from their strange cargoes for a night or two of simple pleasures. Whilst the mail cursed and struggled to patch the leaking patches, Yarvi was taken ashore on Trigg's chain, looking for stores and oar slaves to replace what the storm had taken. There, in narrow lanes aswarm with humanity of every cut and colour, Yarvi bartered. He had watched his mother doing it. Laithlin, the Golden Queen, no sharper eye or quicker tongue around the shattered sea, and found he had her tricks without thinking. He haggled in 6 languages, merchants aghast to find their own secret tongues turned against them. He flattered and blustered, snorted derision at prices and contempt at quality, stamped off and was begged back, was first as yielding as oil, then immovable as iron, and left a trail of weeping traders in his wake. Trigg held the chain with so light a hand that Yarvi almost forgot he was chained at all, until, when they were done and the saved hack silver was jingling back in the captain's purse, the overseer's whisper tickled at Yarvi's ear and made his every hair bristle. "You're quite the cunning little cripple, aren't you?" Yarvi paused a moment to collect his wits. "I have some understanding." "Doubtless. It's clear you understood me and Ancran and passed your understandings to the captain. Got quite the vengeful temper, doesn't she? Don't she? The tales she tells of herself might all be lies, but I could tell you true ones would amaze you no less. I once saw her kill a man for stepping on a shoe, and this was a big, big man. Perhaps that's why his weight bruised her toes so." Trigg yanked at the chain, and the collar bit into Yarvi's neck and made him squawk. "Don't lean too much on my good nature, boy." Trigg's good nature did indeed seem too weak a thing to bear much weight. "I played the hand I was dealt," croaked Yarvi. "We all do," purred Trigg. "Ancran played his poorly and paid the price. I don't mean to do the same, so I'll offer you the same arrangement. Half of what you take from Shadixaram you give to me." "What if I don't take anything?" Trigg snorted. "Everyone takes something, boy. Some of what you give to me I'll pass on to the guards and everyone's kept friendly. Smiles all round. Give me nothing, you'll make some enemies. Bad ones to have." He wound Yarvi's chain around his big hand and jerked him closer still. "Remember, cunning children and stupid ones all drown very much the same." Yarvi swallowed once more. Mother Gundring used to say, "A good minister never says no, if they can say perhaps." "The captain's watchful. She doesn't trust me yet. Only give me a little time." With a shove, Trigg sent him stumbling back towards the south wind. "Just make sure it's a little." That was well enough with Yarvi. Old friends in Thorby, not to mention old enemies, would not wait for him forever. Charming though the overseer was, Yarvi hoped very much to quit Trigg's company before too long. From Roystock they turned northwards. They passed lands that had no name, where fens of mirror-pools stretched into unknown distances, thousands of fragments of sky sprinkled across this bastard offspring of earth and sea, lonely birds calling out over the desolation, and Yarvi breathed deep the salt chill and longed for home. He thought often of Asurin, trying to remember her scent as she leaned close, the brush of her lips, the shape of her smile, sun glowing through her hair in the doorway of the Godsall. Scant memories turned over and over in his mind until they were worn threadbare as a beggar's clothes. Was she promised to some better husband now? Smiling at some other man? Kissing another lover? Yarvi clenched his teeth. He had to get home. His every idle moment was crowded with plans for escape. At a trading post where the buildings were so rough-hewn a man could get splinters just from walking by, Yarvi pointed out a servant girl to Trig, then among the salt and herbs acquired some extra supplies while the overseer was distracted. Enough tanglefoot leaf to make every guard on the ship slow and heavy, or even send them off to sleep if the dose was right. "What about the money, boy?" Trig hissed as they headed back to the south wind. "I have a plan for that," and Yarvi gave a humble smile while he thought of rolling a slumbering Trig over the side of the ship. He was a great deal more valued, respected and, being honest, useful as a storekeeper than he had been as a king. The oar slaves had enough to eat and warmer clothes to wear, and grunted their approval as he passed. He had the run of the ship while they were on the salt, but like a miser with his profits, that much freedom only sharpened his hunger for more. When Yarvi thought no one could see, he dropped crusts near Nothing's hand, and saw him slip them quickly into his rags. Once their eyes met afterward, and Yarvi wondered if the scrubber could be grateful, for it hardly seemed there was anything human left behind those strange, bright, sunken eyes. But Mother Gundring always said, "It is for one's own sake that one does good things." He kept dropping crumbs when he could. Shlikshram noted with pleasure the greater weight of her purse, and with even more the improvement in her wine, achieved in part because Yarvi was able to buy in such impressive bulk. "This is a better vintage than Ankram bought me," she muttered, squinting at its colour in the bottle. Yarvi bowed low. "One worthy of your achievements." And behind the mask of his smile he considered how, when he sat in the black chair once more, he would see her head above the screaming gate, and her cursed ship made ashes. Sometimes, as darkness fell, she would stick one foot at him so he could pull her boots off while she spouted some tale of past glories, the names and details shifting like oil with every telling. Then she would say he was a good and useful boy, and if he was truly lucky would give him scraps from her table and confess, "My soft heart will be my undoing." When he could keep himself from cramming them in his mouth on the spot, he would slip them to Jowd, who would pass them to Rolf, while Ankran sat frowning into nowhere between them, his scalp cut from his shaving, and his scab face a very different shape than it had been before its argument with Shadixram's boot. "Gods," grunted Rolf, "remove this two-handed fool from our oar and give us Yorv again." The oar slaves about them laughed, but Ankran sat still as a man of wood, and Yarvi wondered whether he was turning over his own oath for vengeance. He glanced up and saw Samael frowning down from her place on the yard. She was always watching, judging, as though at a course she could not approve. Even though they were chained at night to the same ring outside the captain's cabin, she said nothing to him beyond the odd grunt. "Get rowing," snapped Trig, shoving past and barging Yarvi into the oar he used to pull. It seemed he had made enemies as well as friends. But enemies, as his mother used to say, are the price of success. "Boots, Yorv!" Yarvi flinched as if at a slap. His thoughts had wandered far away, as they often did, back to the slopes above his father's burning ship, swearing his oath of vengeance before the gods. Back to the roof of Amwen's holdfast, the smell of burning in his nose. Back to his uncle's calmly smiling face. He would have been a fine jester. "Yorv!" He struggled from his blankets, tugging a length of chain after him, stepping over Samael, hunched in her own bundle, dark face twitching silently in her sleep. It was growing colder as they headed north, and specks of snow whirled from the night on a keen wind, dotting the firs the oar slaves huddled under with white. The guards had given up patrolling, and the only two awake hunched over a brazier by the forward hatch into the hold, pinched faces lit in orange. "These boots are worth more than you, damn it!" Shlikshram was sitting on a bed, eyes shining wet, straining forward and trying to grab her foot, but so drunk she kept missing. When she saw him, she sagged back. "Give me a hand, eh?" "As long as you don't need to," said Yarvi. She gurgled with laughter. "You're a clever little cripple bastard, aren't you? I swear the gods sent you to get my boots off." Her chuckles became like snores, and by the time he wrestled her second boot off and heaved a leg onto the bed, she was sound asleep, head back, hair fluttering over her mouth with each snorting breath. Yarvi stopped still as stone. Her shirt had come open at the collar and the chain slipped from it. Glinting on the furs beside her neck was the key to every lock on the ship. He looked towards the door, open a crack, snow flittering outside. He opened the lamp and blew out the flame, and the room sank into darkness. It was an awful risk, but a man with time against him must sometimes throw the dice. The wise wait for their moment, but never let it pass. He inched to the bed, skin prickling, and slipped his one-fingered hand under Schlickstrom's head. Gently, gently he lifted it, shocked at the dead weight, teeth clenched with the effort of moving so slowly. He winced as she twitched and snorted, sure her eyes would flick open, thinking of her heel smashing his face as it had smashed Ankran's. He took a breath and held it, reached across her for the key, caught by a gleam of Father Moon's light from one of the narrow windows. He strained for it, but his itching fingertips came up just short. There was a choking pressure around his neck. His chain had snagged on something. He turned, thinking to yank it free, and there, in the doorway, jaw locked tight in Yarvi's chain, gripped firmly in both fists, stood Samael. For a moment they were frozen there. Then she began to reel him in. He let Schlickstrom's head fall as gently as he could, gripped the chain with his good hand and tried to drag it back, breath hissing. Samael only pulled harder, the collar grinding into Yarvi's neck, the links of the chain cutting into his hand, making him bite his lip to keep from crying out. It was like the rope contest that the boys used to play on the beach in Thorby, except only one of them had both hands, and one end was around Yarvi's neck. He twisted and struggled, but Samael was too strong for him, and in silence she dragged him closer and closer, his boots slipping on the floor, catching a bottle and sending it rolling, until in the end she caught him by the collar and hauled him out into the night, dragging him close. "Damn fool," she snarled in his face. "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" "What do you care?" he hissed back, his knuckles white around his collar and her knuckles white around his collar and his knuckles white around her fist. "I care if they change all the locks because you stole the key, idiot." There was a long pause, then, while they stared at each other in the darkness, and it settled on him just how very close they were. Close enough for him to see the angry creases at the bridge of her nose, to see her teeth gleaming through the notch in her lip, to feel her warmth. Close enough for him to smell her quick breath, a little sour but none the worse for that. Close enough, almost, to kiss. It must have settled on her at the same moment, because she let go of his collar as if it was hot, pulled away and twisted her wrist free of his grip. He turned her words over and looked at them this way and that, and the realisation set on him. Changing the locks would only bother someone who had a key already. He found a way to copy a key, perhaps. He sat down in his usual place, rubbing at the chafe marks and the old burns on his neck with his good hand, tucking his bad one into the warmth of his armpit. But the only reason the slave would need a key is to escape. "Shut your mouth!" She slid down beside him, and there was another pause. The snow drifted, settled upon her hair, across his knees. It was not until he was giving up hope of her ever speaking again that she finally did. So softly he could scarcely hear it over the wind. A slave with a key might free some other slaves. All of them, perhaps. In the confusion, who knows who might slip away? "A lot of blood could be spilled," murmured Yarvi. "In the confusion, who knows whose? Far safer to put the guards to sleep." Samael looked sharply over at him. He could see the gleam of her eyes, the mist of her breath. A slave who knew plants and poured the guards' ale and brought the captain's wine might find a way. A risk, he knew, but with her help things could be so much easier. And a man with time against him must sometimes throw the dice. Perhaps two slaves together could achieve what one alone couldn't. She finished for him. "Best to slip from the ship while in port." Yarvi nodded. "I'd have thought so." He'd been thinking about little else for days. Skakenkenhouse would be the best chance. The city's busy, but the guards are lazy. The captain and Trigg spend a lot of time off the ship. Unless one had friends somewhere around the shattered sea. He let the bait hang there. She swallowed it whole. Friends that might shelter a pair of escaped slaves? Exactly. In, say, Thorby? The south wind will be back through Thorby within a month or two. Yarvi could hear the excitement, squeaky in her whisper. He could not keep it from his own. As soon as that a slave with a key, and a slave who knew plants, could be free. They sat in silence in the cold, in the darkness, as they had so many nights before, but, looking across by Father Moon's pale light, Yarvi thought that there was a rare hint of a smile at the corner of Samael's mouth. He thought it suited her. And that's the end of chapter 16. I'll hopefully you'll join me next time for chapter 17 called One Friend. Take care.